Yes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to my channel that I continually call a work in progress and always evolving. Well, today I am so excited to have a guest on. His name is Ray Foster. Foster, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of you, if you've been listening to my channel, you know that I constantly put out the welcome mat to some of you that may want to join me in a conversation, and Ray responded, so I'm super excited. So it is really my first conversation with someone. Now, let me quickly introduce a little bit of Ray, of his story. He has an amazing story, and we're going to do part one today of part two, and then we'll have part two. But just to give you a little teaser, is he lost 90 pounds in 6 months and went off all his meds. And we're going to learn about that today. But let me say a disclaimer. This video is not about how to lose weight. It's not about going off your meds. It just was part of his journey. So welcome, Ray.
Thank you. That's a beautiful welcome. Yeah. I feel so invited.
Good. Well, I am too. So let's get to it. Let's start about the time that you were in the military and you were going through some medical testing because you were going to be deployed to Iran. And so can you start there and give us what that how that went?
So I was I think I was in Seattle. I was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. We were about to be deployed to Iraq.
Oh, Iraq, sorry.
Yeah, we were about to be deployed to Iraq, and I failed a physical once I came back in from our training session. And I failed this physical it was more of so we had these masks and things that we have to wear in the service, a gas mask. In order for me to be deployable, I have to be able to put on a mask. And the exam that I failed showed that it was something wrong with my breathing as I was exercising. I got overly excited and like it was catching my breath, and they heard it. So from that moment, I started going to all these different procedures, and they called it reactive airway disorder. Then I got chaptered out of the military and then sent home because you can't be in a deployable unit like that. So once I came home, it was just a bunch of medical doctor's exams and following up just to make sure I was okay coming home. So from that change, yeah, it was, I got chaptered out, sent home because of reactive airway disorder. They were saying they had to call it reactive airway disorder because if you say asthma, then you get sent home immediately. So they were trying to make sure that I was okay to stay in or to get out. So once they determined I wasn't able to stay in at my position and my rank, then I got sent home.
Oh, okay.
Medically retired. Let me not say I got sent home. I got medically retired from the Army.
Got it. So then from that point forward, you ended up having some real health issues that started up. Tell us a little bit about that, what part of journey that was.
So as I continued to age after getting out the service, I just started to notice my health was declining. Let's say declining. So my health was declining. It was like I was starting to be where I couldn't go outside. People cutting the grass. I would have to roll the windows of my car up because the grass blowing around or certain things coming up, it would trigger my breathing to be sporadic or tightness or shortness of breath. So it would just felt like somebody was standing on my chest. Or if I had like a small toddler or something on my chest, it was just a little harder to take deep breaths for that matter. So it just felt like I was always short of oxygen. And then like my allergies made it worse. So seasonal, when certain seasons would change in Chicago, those seasons would destroy me because my eyes would start running. They would be itchy all the time. I would always be in my ears. It felt like it was stuff crawling in my ears. I felt like everything on me itched at all times. So I started going to an allergist through the VA. I started going and getting all these allergy shots once a month. And I did that for like 8 years. The doctors said that normally they only do the allergy test for 4 years, trying to get your body acclimated to it. But because I was having such adverse reactions to some of the shots, it lasted longer. Me thinking it was helping, one winter, I just slowed down taking my medicine during the winter. And I didn't need it as much because of the weather and wasn't anything popping up or I wasn't real active. So I was fine. So that gave me like a small taste of it working out for me. And then like just started making changes for myself to follow that along, I guess. And I
Okay.
don't know if I answered your question directly.
Yeah, you did. So I'm just kind of taking us through, not so much chronologically, but just the events that led up to
Right.
the shift that happened, this
Right.
kind of shift in awareness, we could say. So kind of take us through, you had a pivotal point. So you were going to these doctors, and I guess nothing was completely improving. You were still dealing with your issues. Is that correct?
Right. That's still correct. I was still having so many adverse effects to everything. From if I went and played basketball, I'd have to have albuterol. If I went to do certain things, I would have to always have a rescue inhaler next to me.
Wow.
So with those things, it was just like, I don't want this to be the rest of my life. Like, and I thought about that. It was a thought that crossed my mind. And from that thought, it's just been coming forward since. It was like, I wasn't born like this. Like I didn't have all these conditions at my birth. So along the way, something I picked up. So I was like, if I picked it up, that means I can let it go. So that was more of my pivotal moment for myself. It was to understand and to realize for me, if it was something that I picked up along the way, that meant it's not me. It's something that I can also release or let go. So it was just trying to figure out how to do that. And going the route that I was going was not lending to that being the outcome of my desire.
So from that kind of realization, or what do we want to call it, maybe even coming from your intuitive side, who knows, and probably out of frustration, I imagine.
All of the above.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember you mentioned something when we talked before, that these events, these health issues, they were no small deal. That I think you said at one time your head swelled, or
Oh yeah. So I
you,
had an adverse side effect for one of the allergy shots that I had, where my face swelled up, my hands swelled up. I had hives all over my body. So it was so bad. Like the nurses at the hospital had to run and get a EpiPen to stick me with the EpiPen and then to stick me with some Benadryl, like not even the pills. I had to get injection to speed up the process of it getting into my system because of the reaction to everything that was in there. So it was just like, I couldn't see my life being dependent on medical assistance for the rest of my life. I didn't want that life for me. So those thoughts started to fester and fester until it was a tipping point one day. I saw a video on YouTube of Dr. Berg, and I saw his transformation from how he looked to how he looked now, and saying asthma was curable. You just have to take some practical steps in, and is almost like reteaching yourself how to breathe over again. So once I started doing that, like I was getting the feedback from people around me saying you can't change asthma. It's not mind over matter. So in that, all that did was make me dig in more and show like, no, that's not the truth. So in me realizing that that wasn't the truth, I started making those changes that I needed based on how my body was talking to me, or my intuition how it was letting me know the next right steps for me to do. So it's not to point to this as this will help you, because if I tell you something directly what I did and it doesn't help you, I don't want to be seen as this information is not true. It just didn't work for you, because each of our bodies are different in the makeup of them. But overall, we are the same. So I can't eat certain things and certain things other people can. That doesn't make me deficient or something. It just means it doesn't work for me. And owning something not being for everybody, that is okay.
Okay, let's kind of back up just a teeny bit here.
Yeah.
So you're going through this, I would call it pretty dramatic and traumatic events that were not who you were,
No.
basically. This is being this unhealthy or disabled person, you know, under certain circumstances, was not the person that you knew you to be. But here you were going
Right.
through this experience. And
Right.
so at some point also you gained a lot of weight. Tell us a little bit about what that was about for you.
So that could have been a plethora of things. So when I got out of the service, I was maybe 205. So I was 205 pounds, looked like I worked out, looked like I took care of myself. So over the course of 10 years of being separated from the service, I went from 205 pounds to 265 pounds. So I had ballooned up, and I didn't carry it to, you wouldn't think I was 265 pounds. I just looked like a muscular guy and looked fine. But to me, I felt sluggish. I felt heavy, like my joints and everything hurt. When I left the army, I have a herniated disc in my back also. So it was just like everything was compounding on top of each other. And that 265 pounds trying to move around like that, it was becoming more problemsome for me. So, like when COVID happened, the realization of everything was in hand in that moment. Because in that moment, everybody was like, oh, well, COVID is attacking people who are overweight or who have all these other underlying conditions, such as asthma. And I was like, oh my goodness. So now I have to worry about what I do, because I also travel for work and I work in hospitals. That's the interesting part.
Whoa.
Right. So I do architectural surveys for hospitals. So I go every other week, travel to different states, and I walk through hospitals. So in order for me to do that, that meant, like, if I'm around all these things, that I need to be proactive in my health and not relying on outside sources telling me how to live and how to trust what my body was telling me. So once I realized and took that control back for me, and I started putting things in place mentally for me first, then I was able to sustain some of those by changing my diet, by getting sleep, getting to sleep properly, not eating a few hours before bed. So my body is going to sleep and it's not breaking down food while I slept. It's actually taking care of and healing itself, because that was also something that I knew. I've known that for since the longest I can remember, that our body heals itself. All we have to do is move out of the way of what we are doing to cause those things to be out of character, for that matter. So I just started aware of that.
Yeah, sorry. But so what it sounds like, though, kind of hearing your story, and of course we've talked before, so I know a little bit about your story. What I get, and I think this is correct, but tell me if it's not, is little by little you were letting go of beliefs that you kept, that you kind of had happen through growing up. You know, as kids, that's what we all do. We inherit the beliefs.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not ours, but we get them, and we keep them. You know, many that because we don't know any different at a certain time, and so we keep these beliefs, and they kind of get lodged I think, in the body and the mind, whatever we want to call it, but they continue to be part of our system, who we think we are. And then it sounds like as you started going through this health issues, that started to break open some, maybe a openness or more of a insight into, this isn't who I am, I think is what you probably felt. I would. And yet, you're kind of still in the system,
Yes.
the medical system. And isn't it interesting that medical system was not able to put you back together, so to speak,
That part that's interesting, where we are giving our trust to something, thinking that our best interest is at hand. And for that matter, it is to a point.
Yeah.
So it's like not to point at it in a negative sense, because it does do its job to an extent. It does exactly what it's designed to do. So for me, it was so many old beliefs about myself, or how we are supposed to do this, or how we are supposed to do these things. And as I realized, the more and more of those things that I followed, that wasn't me really living. That wasn't me in charge of my life. That was me allowing me living outside in. And I realized in me living that way, I was subjected to my life happening to me versus me living my life and letting it happen from me out. And it's like, yeah, that whole thought process, a whole a bond, or I would say a shackle that we have on our minds that control certain aspects of us. I wanted to release, and I didn't know how to release it. So in all of these things happening, it was like how would I say this? It was like a grapefruit cake coming together at once. There's like so much stuff that was happening at once that it caused that awareness in me to be sparked. So it's like, that's that whole thing, as counted all joy. It's like you count everything in your life as joy because it led you to where you are now, to awaken you to a different part of yourself. So some of those things, you need that conflict in order for that growth to be, for you to be aware of that growth. So even looking at it now, I still appreciate all of it, because that gives me, man, I could only share this smile with you by my face. Like the joy that's coursing through me right now, man, it's like, it feels so contagious that you just wanna, it's almost like you just want to touch somebody else and give them a little of it, so they can then run with it from their points of view.
Got it. I'm gonna just reel you back in for a moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so because I think a really important part here is that I don't think you're trying to say, hey, a flick of the light switch and it was a walk in the park and boom. I don't think that's where we're going, right? So talk a little bit about your personal, I would think, I don't know, but I think that when you start to make these major shifts like you're talking about, and start to release these beliefs and so forth, I know for myself, there's a part of me that is definitely kind of on a move. It isn't me, something's moving me. But there's also that other part that's feeling pretty scared and kind of like, oh my God, is this the right, am I okay? Is this the right place? Can you speak a little to that? How did that work for you?
Okay. So with that, so the first change for me was my diet. And that change started making other things a lot more clearer for me. So with that clarity comes with the clarity comes the destruction for that point, because you have to take down some of those old things in order for something new to come about. So that old scaffolding that is crumbling around me for that point, because as you just said, I don't want to make it sound like it's all roses and peaches, like I lost weight, now everything is perfect, and that's not the truth of it. So I am 45 years old. I was 265 pounds with my thoughts, and I'm on my third marriage right now, going into a divorce with this new awareness for me. And with that, man, it's just been a lot of chaos around in that, but that chaos still brings that peace. It's like this peace that's coming from in here throughout it. It really relaxes everything else. It makes everything else feel like we are all part of life, living this life, and this one is trying to come together with the people around us and build bonds, true bonds of relationships where we are letting go some of these old beliefs of, hey, I'm black, you're white. Hey, I'm young, you're old. It's like letting this stuff go, because the more we box ourselves in, those boxes actually become our prison. So that, like, I get everybody setting all these boundaries and saying all these things. It sounds wonderful how it's being used, but those things actually separate you from each other. It's like, I know I can be in love and forgiveness when I'm expressing me, when I'm sharing the truth of who I am. And me sharing the truth of who I am, it also disrupts people around you that you think are your friends or your family or everything else. Like, I've gotten into it with my brothers, not brothers, but a couple of my brothers. I have 7 of them. Yeah, I've gotten it. Me and my wife. I moved out of my place in October of last year. So this is like, and I would be married this July 7th. So 777 is our anniversary. So this will be 16 years.
Well,
And I moved out in October because it was like a constant fight where what I'm going through now, the only thing I want in return from anybody is just to be able to share my truth with, just to be able to talk to in love. I don't need to control anybody else's points of view. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to be able to share where I am in my walk. I don't need you to agree with me either, because the agreement is your point of view. And I agree, each of our points of view are the part of us that is unique. Our point of view is the part of us that gets to express to each other, that brings light and gets to represent the love that we are to each other.
so
If that,
so so let me just kind of say that, kind of bring this to what I think you're definitely expressing, and that's what I'd like to kind of dig in a little bit, is that when we make these changes, such as, I don't even know that great big changes like you've gone through necessarily, or any change is difficult. And when we change, or the individual changes, then like you said, everything around you is going to be impacted, because you are not showing up anymore as they know you or as they expect from you.
yes,
And so, it can sound to some people like, oh my God, I don't want to make a change if I'm going to go through all this. And it doesn't mean everybody goes through all this, but I know, and from people I know as well that have made changes, yes, you're going to have some results from that that may at the time feel pretty awful, or you
right,
can feel like, what happened, I've lost friends, I've lost family, and at the time it can feel, I think, kind of, it doesn't feel good, let's put it that way.
no.
No. And it's also, and you could get into the, well, they're not supporting me, and blame, but that's not where you go.
No.
It's almost part of that, letting go with grace, in a way, of what's happening. And it's supposed to happen that way. And we move beyond that. And like you've talked, it's really what's helped you get to where you've gotten.
Yes,
And it didn't mean that it had to happen that way, but that's part of the journey, your journey. And it's also allowed you to really keep putting one foot in front of the other,
yes,
keep moving forward, where if somebody stops and says, oh, I'm not going to do this because things are falling apart, that's not what the message is, right?
No. So just like that, like it's this journey, let's call it a journey. So this journey for me, it has been one of wonder. Like I would do it over again in a heartbeat. Like if I knowing everything that I know right now, I would still do the same thing over again. Maybe a couple details along the way may change, but the end result is still the same. It's just showing how brilliantly made we are. Where we focus, we get. So and that goes back to your question earlier, Susan. It goes to not blaming, not shaming, not putting your choices off on anyone else. It's being accountable for the choices you made in your life, because your choices has consequences regardless on how they look. Every choice you make has a consequence that's going to play out, and how long it plays out is determined by you, because it depends on the next choice you get. So we are always able to repent for that point and change the way we were thinking, so we can correct our own thoughts and line to where we need it to be. But that goes to, you just, oh my goodness, you said something that was so spot on, that my life and how it has unfolded, each step along the way, where times where I would feel like the struggle's getting too much or I couldn't sustain where I was, I would get small little things just to give me comfort and to see, no, it's working out for you. Life is working out for you. Things are going the way you are intending them to go. You just don't know how it's going to play out. So I saw this in a book or something that I read, where it said, if you knew the end result of your life, would you still make the choices you made in the beginning to get to where you are? And most of us would change those choices. So we would essentially, it's like we regret certain parts of our life. And it's not with regret. So that's why I'm saying no blame, no, it's not putting any responsibility to anybody outside of me, because the responsibility should be within me for the choices and the decisions that I make across the board for so many things. So it's the part that, even like this moment right here between you and I is a result of that choice. So a couple months ago, I did a energy course. Somebody just reached out to me just to do it. And that it was so feeling and fulfilling in that it just gave me something else to hold on to. So it's like a constant momentum being put, and that momentum is being built and built and built. And it's the constant bond of that helped me to carry on to what I was doing and to follow that path and to trust my own intuition and listen to my body talking to me. Listen to my body telling me how to eat. Listen to my body telling me how to sleep, when to sleep, and when it's actually tired. It's like at 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm still filled with so much energy from the day that I make myself go to bed. It's because that energy is still there. So I went from sleeping a couple hours a day to, man, I sleep and I'm so well rested. I'm so relaxed, and I feel like I'm in tune with me. And that it's a gratifying feeling, and it's all in appreciation. And it is something that has been developing over the last 2.5 to 3 years. So it's not saying this is a flash in the pan. One morning I woke up and it was all, no, no, no. For me, it started in so many ways. It started with my doctor talking about losing weight because my blood pressure. It started, and I'm saying it started. So I'm showing you the multitude of ways that it started for me, which just being one pill. So it started with the doctor talking to me. It started with my allergist telling me that, hey, you can try these things. And if you're going to cut out eating meat and you're going to cut this stuff out, let's put something in place so know how to go about it. You still need certain minerals, you still need certain things in your system. So it was cutting back on the food, cutting back on types of food I was eating, where it was fruits, vegetables, water, just paying attention to how I felt, feeling energized, where I wasn't sluggish. Nothing sat in my system for so long that my body needed to make certain changes for that being in my system. So once that started clearing out, I started noticing my skin clear up. I started noticing my nails changing, and like the quality of so much stuff. All my clothes, I have to change everything now. So it's presenting new challenges now, and those new challenges that it presents, I get another opportunity to see life unfold for me in another way, to cause more appreciation.
So I think, the just to kind of clarify, when you're talking about you'll say I did this or I did that, do you feel it was a doer that was actually doing this, or do you feel that somehow it's coming through you? You're somehow, whatever it is, yes, you're still here, obviously, and you are having a human experience, and you are, and the body is the body, and it's not like you can just stop everything and it's going to be okay. You had help to help you through a healthy way of doing it, but at the same time you had to let go of all those beliefs, and you had to go through that. So multiple things were happening, but I'm just curious that when you say the I, or how do you experience it? Is it kind of something starts to what do I want to say, kind of comes through you, and that's how you express?
Okay, absolutely. And I like how you just said that. So I made a declaration to myself because of a question my wife asked. When she asked me if I loved her, why don't I act like it? That question sat on my mind for a week. So one day I sat on the edge of my bed and said, God, I can't hear anybody else speak to me if it's not you. So from that day, I would say my life changed, because it was like I released any hold that I had to any identity that I thought I was.
Wow.
So me releasing that, and when I say releasing that, I mean truly releasing it, because it was so many things that I had a hold of, because I thought that's what I was supposed to be as a man, as a Black man. It's so many things that are heaped up on us that so from that day, when I make that change for myself, and I say me because I'm
Understand.
yes.
Gotta talk. Have to have a way to say it.
Yeah. So from that moment, now my life has unfolded to where without a shadow of a doubt, I would say the Father and I are one, because the oneness comes from within and then out. So trusting what's in me to lead me forward gave me all the power I needed to move forward in that, because that's the ultimate trust. If I can't trust anything else, I can trust that, because I'm here.
Oh, wow. I so appreciate you, and I so appreciate how you are expressing this, because I think this is what all of us need to understand. We may go about it in very different ways, but to know that there is that connection that can happen, and your situation brought you to where you are now, and you're still moving forward. So what I want to do, because we're coming kind of toward the end of our time here, we have a little bit of time left, but we're going to do part 2. And I think in part 2, what we're going to want to do is, just to give a little spoiler here, is that we'll let's dig deeper, and just you and I having a conversation. You know, we kind of know now what you've been through, which is phenomenal. And you know, we should mention, by the way, today that you're at your 175 as far as your weight,
Yeah.
which is your high school weight, and
Yeah.
you've maintained this for a year and a half, and you're off all your meds.
My,
So you've moved into you've moved through this process. So I think the next step is, let's dig deeper in part two. And it is a conversation at that point. It's, you know, I wanted people to get to know you. I have
right.
to tell you, I have so enjoyed getting to know you. You are absolutely amazing. You come from your heart, which is so touching for me to experience. And I have so much appreciation and how that we did meet. I mean, who knew that I would have this guy as my very first conversation? I'm just blown away. I really am. So
Now we have to cut it out.
the goosebumps, right? Yeah. So let's kind of, that's what we'll do for our next our part two.
Okay.
And you know, and I'm hoping people will join us on that, because I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation that we can have. You and I have discovered we have some things in common.
Absolutely.
You know, and this is what I always say, that as we have these conversations, we find out we're much more alike than not alike.
Not alike.
Yeah,
Each is the expression of each of us.
exactly. So let's leave people at this point wanting more.
Indeed.
And again, I thank you so much. And I have to say this to whoever's listening to this, I am absolutely not, when it comes to technology, I really struggle. And I have to thank you so much, Ray, for all that we went through just to get this to happen. So that is another thank you to you, because this has been quite a journey for me. And I've learned a lot, by the way.
And you as well. I have also. I have.
Okay. All righty. So we will see you very soon for part two, and maybe part three and part four. We'll see, huh?
Because there's so much life to tell.
That's right. That's right. So take care. And again, thank you so much, Ray, for being my guest.
Thank you for having me as your guest.
My pleasure. All righty. We'll see you soon.
See you.